The federal government of Nigeria has announced plans to expand its direct cash transfer program beyond 15 million households. That's 15 million families receiving direct financial aid. This decision was made known by Nigeria's coordinated Minister of Finance and the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu, while speaking at the Oxford Global Think Tank Leadership Conference and book launch in the nation's capital, Abuja, yesterday.
Edu said the initiative currently benefits over 15 million households across the country. He noted that while progress had been made in stabilizing inflation and the exchange rate, more needed to be done to lift Nigerians out of poverty and ensure citizens feel the positive effects of ongoing economic reforms.
On paper, it sounds like compassion. In practice, some would say that it raises questions. Is this a bold step toward poverty alleviation or bandage on a bullet wound? And is this economic reform or political optics? Joining us for this discussion is economist and principal partner at Woodridge and Scott Consulting, Mr. Segun Sokoton. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here, Olivia. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Maybe you start by helping us explain, if you understand what it means to expand beyond 15 million households. Where's the money coming from? How sustainable is it?
The question you ask presumes that I support, what this is all about. And I think that that's something that we need to address, because to be honest, I am now beginning to wonder if this is an end in itself or a means to an end. So to expand this project, this conditional cash transfers, which, by the way, has been ongoing, we have to remember this, has been ongoing since the Buhari days. In fact, I think since the first term of President Buhari, the late President Buhari, right? Which makes it about 6-7 years. And for the life of me, I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to achieve, because in the first instance, these monies are they're epitome. They can barely help you survive. So it will seem as if the objective of this scheme is to continue to give people fish. And perhaps, maybe, if I want to be uncharitable, I would say maybe to even deliberately keep them impoverished. And that can't be the objective. So where would the money come from, just to address your question? I think now we're kind of, the impression that we get from the government, the optics and their body language is that we're swimming in cash, right? Is that we don't have to borrow anymore. And by removing subsidies and by floating the exchange rates and therefore not needing to subsidize that the forex market, that we have now freed up a lot of money for government to invest in social infrastructure and all of that. So it will seem as if we have a lot of money. Maybe we're back to the period when Gowon famously said that money is not a problem, but how to spend it. And we're looking at, okay, let's share this money to a lot more people. By the way, 15 million households, the calculation is that according to their statistics, those 15 million households, they're assuming that it's 4% or 5% per household. So that would take the total number of Nigerians benefiting from this to about 75 million people, if you have 5 people per household, So expanding that, maybe what we're trying to do is to actually cover or target the 133 thereabout Nigerians that have been stated on paper to be living below the poverty line. So if we have the money to do this, all well and good, but I think this is an absolute misplacement of priorities and a not very smart use of scarce resources, because contrary to the impression that we're being given, we are not swimming in money. And the money that we do have available is barely enough. In fact, I can tell you categorically that it's nowhere near enough to deal with issues that we should be targeting and confronting frontally.
Now, Mr. Sokoton, from your opening statement, we can deduce that you're not in support of this. You rather teach people how to fish than hand them fish, because we've been doing this, like you said, since the Buhari era. We're still in the same place and we're not as rich as we think. Now let's talk about transparency issues. People ask, are these transfers truly reaching the vulnerable? A journalist put up a Freedom of Information request. And they said, you know, due to data privacy issues and issues around confidentiality, they wouldn't want to reveal the names of those Nigerians, perhaps, for social reasons. But given Nigeria's history of ghost beneficiaries, weak data system, how confident can we be that this expansion will actually reach the poorest 15 million households and not become another avenue for political patronage as we're approaching the penultimate year to the general election?
To be honest, thanks for that question. I think that to latch on to what you said last, I will see more and more that this is potentially more about politics than economic planning, wealth creation, poverty alleviation, as it ought to be. Because if you want to use a tool like this as a tool for economic planning, then your objective must be that it has to be a transitional mechanism that is used, deployed to provide some sort of succor whilst there are other programs that are going to move these people out of poverty, that are going to help them become economically self-sufficient at the very least. You don't have to make them rich. I think that, you know, wealth creation and stuff like that is a personal responsibility, in my opinion, because, you know, I'm a social capitalist. I do believe that the role of the state is to provide the enabling environment, provide some sort of support to enable each human being explore their full potential and capacity, and then create wealth if that's what, you know, you are able to achieve. But it would appear as though that is not what we're trying to do here. It would appear as though this is perhaps dispensation of patronage, and some people who want to be even more vitriolic with their language will say that this is simply vote buying, as they said during the days of President Buhari. You know, so is the objective to lift people out of poverty? That's what the government is saying. I hope that we do achieve that objective, but I know that we can't going about it this way. And then talking about the transparency issues. Well, you know, this scheme has the full backing of the World Bank. There appears to be a lot of transparency in viewing mechanisms embedded in the whole process. For example, the minister says that the national identification number of every beneficiary is on the database, and that payments are not made in cash anymore. The payments are made through bank transfers, which would then suppose that you can interrogate that data and confirm, you know, that payments indeed have been made. Is it available to the public? Oh, apparently not. Should it be? I think so. You know, after all, it's public funds we're spending. So the privacy concern excuse for keeping this opaque, for me, doesn't hold water. It's our money. It's taxpayers' money. And taxpayers must know what the money is being used to and who is, you know, getting out of it, so that we remove the possibility that this is actually just being used to dispense patronage to political acolytes, which is what we have seen happen with all of the palliative schemes right from the days of COVID up until even this most recent ones after subsidy removal. You find that it's party loyalists that eventually benefits from these things. And we have to ensure that that is not what is going on now. So government owes the public the duty of transparency. Publish the names, you know, maybe in a polling unit or polling center, so people can go confirm. I know that there are other social concerns that automatically would arise from that, you know, like legitimately the privacy issues are there, to be honest. But the transparency issues, for me, far override any privacy concerns that anybody might have. If you don't want your name on the list, don't take the money. If you are taking public money, then people should know that you are taking public money and see that your life is actually improving as a result. You know, so, but ultimately for me, the issue is we can't deal with poverty like this. We have to have very clearly well thought through programs that will help people create wealth and explore their full potential. That's what they did in places like India. That's what they did in China. But in India in particular, because they had some sort of a conditional cash transfer program as well. But this was only for a very short period. while other programs then kicked in and helped those people to begin to become self-sufficient economically.
I know we've talked on transparency, and the federal government says the process is transparent. But if we date back to what had happened, which led to the removal of a few persons from a particular office, we did see that monies were indeed dedicated for such exercises, and yet, till date, we have no accountability as to how the money went, what happened to the money, and so on and so forth. But as an economist, I'm sure you are very familiar with KYC, which is Know Your Customer, right? It means that everybody who banks with you, everybody who engages in the form of transaction must be known by the bank and must have a face. Is it somewhat confusing that we seem not to have seen anybody come out to say, I am a true beneficiary of these funds that have been transferred to my account? And because we haven't seen that, what does this do to the society and the believability of these processes?
Look, to be honest, Joe, it's a phantom program. Let's not. I know that some things are not politically correct to be said on TV, and I know that a lot of my colleagues, like to just toe the line and not ruffle feathers and all of that, and I understand that. But the truth is, this scheme has been going on for years and years. Even if you talk about this administration, it's been at almost a year and a half now. How come is it that I personally don't have any vulnerable Nigerian within contacting distance of myself in my daily activities as a Nigerian, because I don't know one single human being that has benefited from this? Now, I have spoken to friends and colleagues, and they do. Some people will say, oh, yes, I've heard this, I've heard that. And I'm sure that there are people that are benefiting. But look, the transparency issue cannot be overemphasized. You mentioned KYC, and you're absolutely spot on. There is absolutely no reason why Nigerians should not. At the end of the day, we are, if you like, the banks in this case. It's our money that is being distributed. And there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't know the people, right down to their faces, who are collecting this money. Because if that doesn't happen, then Better Edu will happen. And Shadia Umar, I think that's her name, Farouk Umar, would happen as well. Billions of monies that were meant to be spent on humanitarian and poverty alleviation causes disappeared. 40 billion in the case of Better Edu. Until today, nothing has happened. So if you don't have very clear transparency mechanisms, then that is almost inevitable. Now, and I think it also bears saying that it's not only by posting their names and pictures that you can have transparency. You could, for example, put up a portal where interested members of the public can go query the system. So you don't have to have everybody's name out there in the public, but it should be available upon investigation and interrogation. If you as a journalist decide that you want to know who has benefited from this, maybe in the Ikeja local government, for example, there has to be some sort of, means to achieve that without you having to go out of your way and say, oh, you want to use the Freedom of Information Act, to get that information out. And there is no effort, to my knowledge, of, on the part of government to make that easily possible. So that needs to be addressed, because these are public funds, like I keep saying.
Is it not an argument, those who would say that you can't just put the details and the data of these individuals out there because you also need to protect their data?
Absolutely. There's a data privacy, we have the NDPR, for example, the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, and the government might argue that they are compelled by those regulations not to make certain parts of this information available publicly, and have no problems with that. But there has to be another way to ensure transparency. Transparency is critical for programs like this. You cannot have a program where you are dispensing billions of naira on a monthly basis to millions of people on a monthly basis and not have a very, very copious transparency mechanism in place. If you don't, the money will be stolen. It's just human nature. The reason that tellers, cash and teller, people are in the banking hall don't pocket part of the money, the tens of millions of naira cash that passes through their hands on a daily basis, is because there's an internal audit process. They know at the end of each day, There is a call-over system to tally the amount of cash you took from the vault in the morning with the amount of cash that you paid during the day based on the tickets that you used with the amount of cash you are putting back in the vault in the evening. That's why they don't steal. The moment there is a loophole in that process, people pocket those monies. And, you know, I used to be in the banking system and we had cases of that happening. It's just human nature to take care of your self-interest if the opportunity arises, even if it will damage other people's interests. So, yes, the privacy concerns are genuine, and I agree with them fully, but there must be a transparency mechanism that maybe does not compromise the specific identities of people, and that's possible. All you need to do is to be willing to subject yourself to that transparency process, and you will find it. It's not rocket science.
Now, Mr. Sokoto, talking about rocket science, you did mention something quite instructive, and I want us to interrogate it further. You gave the example of India that did conditional cash transfers and then shifted. Now, and from our discussion so far, we do know that you belong to the school of thought that believes in teaching people how to fish, creating the enabling environment. Let's look at alternative approaches. What alternative approaches do you think will be more impactful to channel these funds into to help stimulate growth and employment and lift people out of poverty? After all, like you said, it's not rocket science. Vietnam has done it. China has done it. The Asian tigers have done it. So we're not totally reinventing the wheel.
I mean, Malaysia did this. Indonesia did this. The Grameen Bank is another example, just to jump on the train of thought, and it was an incredible success. And I'm talking 20 years ago. So what else could we have done, and what should we actually be doing? So, for me, yes, it's okay. People are very vulnerable. And I think that sometimes it's also bear saying that some of the people, in the social cadre that maybe all of us in this conversation belong to, sometimes we're a bit insensitive to the reality of the enormity of the problem of poverty. So some people don't understand that 5,000 naira per month can actually make a difference in the life of a family, not even a person. 5,000, 10,000 naira per month, 25,000 naira. For some families, 25,000 naira per month is like a gold mine, and the things that they can do with that money can be significant in terms of just improving the standard of living on a daily basis. So that must be said, because for some of us, you spend 25,000 naira every day, so you can't wrap your head around the idea that 25,000 per month can make a difference. Somebody will say, oh, no, this is all nonsense. No, it's not. It can help. But what's been done in all those other places is that it's a temporary relief, provided in the intervening period while the more medium-term fixes are being implemented. So you don't die in the short run while a medium-term and long-run eventually solution is provided. So the things that we need to be doing actually is, and what places like India did was, first of all, you must focus on capacity development. And like I said earlier, and like you've also said, it's not rocket science. Capacity development, skill acquisition schemes, looking at what people are already doing, almost everybody except a few exceptions here and there are already engaged in some form of economic activity or the other. It might be farming, it might be fishing, it could be, maybe a tailor, and so on and so forth, vulcanizer. If you go into the hinterland, most of them are engaged in one type of farming or the other. So you can look into what they're doing currently and help them improve on the way they are doing it, teach them how to multiply, the resources that are available to them, whether it be cash or whether it be land or whether it be whatever their farming inputs and outputs might be. You have to teach them. You've got to take them through these schemes that are built in a way where you can track progress whilst you are giving them these monies. And then at the end of that capacity development process, give them a loan. If you don't want it to be a loan because you are concerned about the ability to collect back, give them a grant. Grants are a means of intervention all over the world. Give them a grant. Maybe it could be 150,000, maybe 250,000. Imagine what 250,000 naira will do to the economy, to the personal economy of a smallholder farmer in somewhere far, maybe in Nasarawa or something like that, and supported by a process that has taught the person how to multiply that money. So you ensure that the money is not collected and spent on Burukutu, so those are the things that we need to do. We have to give the economic empowerment on the one hand in terms of money and maybe other resources, whilst you are teaching people the things to do to ensure that they utilize those resources and their situation becomes better at the end of the program period. Look, these things are not rocket science. Other countries have done it. We are just not interested. I want to appeal to whoever might be listening, who has the authority to do these things, to please look at this more beneficial medium to long-term fixes, and let's do away with this conditional cash transfer thing. We're just wasting money, to be honest.
We keep going around in circles. This is not the first, and unfortunately, Mr. Asokweton, it might not be the last time you will hear about conditional cash transfer. But thank you for lending your voice to the conversation and sharing what you think would be better alternatives to this.
It was my pleasure. Have a wonderful day, guys.